Good afternoon, everybody. Hey, this is Carl Brown, and the Executive Director of the Small Business Development Center at Howard University. And I got two of my good friends on with me today. We're going to be talking about money, the lifeline of every business. Everyone needs it. Everyone wants to know how to get more of it. And we're going to learn a little bit today from my two guests. I got Andrew, Shireen, and Sheila Edmondson on, and they're from M&T Bank, the bank. They are the biggest bank that's helping small businesses in the DMV. So please help me welcome them to the show today, Financial Friday, because we want to talk about money. So Andrew, Sheila, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
It's so great to be with you today, Carl.
Well, let me just tell the audience why we're doing this is because, you know, we want to make sure that you qualify for money and funding in the future. Some already qualify, but others need to learn because everybody's at a different point in development in their small business. And some are just starting out, so they really need to know how to qualify. And who better to talk to than bankers, business bankers. And one thing that I want to let everybody know is you got a network. And these are the folks you need to meet and talk to because they need to know who you are and what your business does. And they're available to you. Look, they're on the show with me today. So, you know, Andrew, you a young guy. You only got 20 years of business banking experience.
I appreciate that.
You're a young guy, man, you know, but 20 years of good experience to tell people, hey, you know, this is what you have to do to qualify, right? And Sheila, yes, you've been around for a long time helping small businesses. And I mean, there's no team better than you two working together, working with the small businesses and working with us at the SBDC. So Andrew, I'm gonna let you take it on, brother.
Yeah, no, it's great to partner with you, Carl. We really appreciate it. I mean, look, helping small businesses is at the core of what we do. And, you know, look, I'll be honest with you. I've never owned my own business, right? So I can't say I've walked in the footsteps of a business owner, but I can say I have a ton of respect for what they do day in and day out. And over my 20 years of experience, I've gained some perspective and I've learned a lot. And I want to share some of that with you today. So one of the questions I get a lot is, you know, how do you get started, right? How do you get prepared to submit a loan request to a bank? And I want to say two things on that. One is you got to understand what your bank's credit process is, all right? And what I mean by that is some banks have a loan committee. Some banks like us, we talk directly to an individual credit underwriter who makes that loan decision. You know, some banks take your financials, package them up, and mail them off somewhere to somebody who makes that decision. So the reason why that's important is because you need to know how to tell your story. Who's going to be advocating for you during that credit process? What does it look like? Understand that process, who the decision makers are, and then how you can kind of tell your story throughout that process. The second thing is you got to be ready to tell your story. You got to be clear on what your story is and where your company's going. And it can get kind of specific. It can get into details with banks. You know, if you have projections, banks want to understand, all right, how are you going to hit those projections, right? If you're saying, hey, things are ramping up, break that down and get detailed, right? So that your banker can advocate for you and understand exactly what your company is going through and where you're headed. So what I'm saying is you got to know your financials. You got to know, you know, how are you going to develop your business? How are you going to develop that revenue? And what are your projections based off of, if you have projections that a bank is going to be evaluating? So for me, you know, being prepared is, how does this bank decision my loan? And then how am I going to tell my story? How prepared am I to tell that story to my bank? And make sure, yeah.
Andrew, we can help with helping small businesses with that, with the projections and with putting the story together. Because a lot of times what we see when we're working with the small businesses is they're so humble that they don't highlight what they're doing. And we're looking at them and going, but you're doing great things. You need to let people know. And they don't understand that. So we could work with them on that. And guess what our price is when we work with them? Free.
That's why you're a great partner, Carl. Honestly, like that way, the work that you do goes such a long way with getting businesses prepared to have that banking conversation.
That's right.
Because you want to get off to the right foot. You know, when you start talking to a bank, you want to make sure that they have confidence in your knowledge of your own business.
That's very important.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
very
exactly.
important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, you know, understanding that, you know, as you get prepared, that's a big deal. And then another question I get a lot is, you know, if you need a line of credit, businesses will say, hey, Andy, how much should I apply for? You know, and it's a fair question. It's a fair question,
Yeah.
especially if you're newer to banking and a lending request. So this is what I always say. I say, hey, look, regardless of your business, because, you know, there's different industries, there's different situations, no business is the same, but one good rule for a line of credit, generally speaking now, is looking at what your monthly expenses are each month. You got to get a good detail on that. Particularly, you know, not everybody has accounts receivable, but understanding what those expenses are and maybe saying, all right, let me get a line amount that'll cover maybe 3 months of expenses. 2 to 3 months is what a lot of banks look at, because when we're using line of credit, say it's funding accounts receivable, you know, your billings, and your billings might not come in as soon as you want them to, depending on who
Right.
you're working with, right? So a good rule of thumb is, all right, if I'm not getting paid for 60 days, 90 days sometimes, you want a line of credit that can cover that difference.
Right.
You know, and that's a good way to kind of say, all right, this is what I'm going to request. And that's also a good way to talk to your bank, because then you're coming with, all right, I know what my expenses are each month. Here's what they're doing. I'm asking to cover that as I'm waiting to get paid. It all makes a lot of sense, and it's a good way to get organized and have that conversation.
That's a good rule of thumb. A buddy of mine, he owned several businesses, and he would always say to me, whenever I start a new business, I always have 18 to 24 months of money set aside for that business so that I can open the doors. And even if I don't make any money, I can still make all of my payments to my suppliers and my lease and all that. But some modern day bankers have said to me, wow, Carl, that's a lot of money. But that he's an older guy, and he was like, I'm not going to get in a position where my business fails.
See, you know? I like that. That's a good conservative approach to have 12 months. Now, look, the line of credit's there to fund your working capital needs, but you should set aside cash. As you're making money, have a cash reserve for things like, I don't know, a pandemic, you know, that we just went through for the last 2 years, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I think the cash reserve is huge. You don't want to drain. You want to build that balance sheet up as you go.
Right, right.
That is really important.
You know, last question. How should a person build a valuable relationship with a business banker? What are you looking for in that relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you know, like any relationship starts with trust and transparency. I think that's one of the biggest things, Carl, honestly. Like, you got to know your business, and then you got to be upfront about, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Like, because the banks are going to analyze everything. They're gonna ask some tough questions. So I really appreciate it. If I'm just getting to know a business, I really appreciate them being transparent with me and saying, hey, here are the things that, you know, are opportunities that I'm working on within my business, or hey, you might see this, or, hey, I pulled my credit score and this is what's on there and this is why, like, so that we're not getting surprised on the back end with things like that. But I think it's being transparent, and it's building that trust with your banker. And then, it's also part of it's a two-way street. Like I said in the beginning, we respect small business owners, right? So they got to have expectations of their bankers too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, hey, this is what I expect you to do for me. You need to be my advocate. And this is why I think you should advocate for me, because this is what I'm bringing to the table. You set expectations up front. You're nice and clear with each other. That's how you start. That's, in my mind, that's how you start a good banking relationship. Sheila, do you have any thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree with transparency and communication. Small businesses think that we don't want to hear what they're doing, but we do want to hear what you're doing. What's going on within your business? How have you grown? We may be able to assist you in other areas that you may not have thought of. So communication and transparency is definitely important in building a business banking relationship.
Yeah, we always say you have to network with your business banker. You
Absolutely.
have to. You got to let them know. And what better way than if you're launching a new product line, invite them in. If you're opening a new store or whatever, invite them in. If you're having a book signing, invite them to the book signing. Let them be a part of your business, because you're asking them for money. And, Andrew and Sheila got to go back to somebody and say, I think you should give them the loan because of this. Oh, yeah, I see the blemish. The blemish. We all understand blemish, and here's the reason why. Let's look beyond that, and let's try and get them the money, because they're going to expand in this way, and it's going to help them. And guess what? They're going to create jobs, and that's what we want. So, hey, guys, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you. Andrew, what we got going on next, buddy?
All right. I'm excited about this. So we talked a lot about loans and relationships. On June 29th, we're going to have a credit presentation where the folks that Sheila and I talked to, the decision makers on the loan side, our credit underwriters are going to kind of open that curtain. They're going to walk through what they call the 6 C's of credit. These are categories that they look at when they're decisioning loans. I think it's going to be great. Like I said, transparency is key, and they're going to have a great presentation for us. That's June 29th, and I'm looking forward to it. And I want to thank you, Carl, for your partnership and allowing us to present and try and provide some information that we think will be valuable to small businesses.
Oh, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. So, folks, if you want to be a part of that, just go to DCSBDC .org and sign up for the webinar. And there are so many other webinars and events and information on grants that are available right now. So with all that, folks, check us out, DCSBDC.org. Andrew, Sheila, it's been wonderful. Have a great weekend, and I'll be talking to you guys soon.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Carl.
Carl.